My fall favorites include more than sweet treats and desserts. I love baking savory goodies, and sometimes I want something as a little appetizer or to serve as a snack. And I know you are going to love my Jalapeño Cornbread Madeleines. They're not just pretty, they're pretty tasty too. Now, what I do is I start out by getting my Madeleine pans ready, whether I'm making sweet or savory Madeleines. And the way I do that is I first chill my Madeleine pans. These Madeleine pans have this distinctive shell shape, and it makes little cakes that are just so adorable and so pretty. Now, if you don't have this pan, it's absolutely okay. You can make these little cornbread bites in a mini muffin tin. Your yield will be 24 little bites if you use a mini muffin tin. Now, to get the pans ready, what I do is I brush with a little melted butter. Now you can see this is why I chilled the pan. See how the butter sticks on without pooling at the bottom of each shell shape? And once I get a layer of butter on each, and this recipe makes 18 Madeleines, I'm going to put these back in the fridge while I get the batter ready. Now I'll get my butter into my pan to melt 3 tablespoons for this cornbread batter. All right, while the butter is melting, let's work on the dry ingredients. This batter is just like making a cornbread batter, of course a smaller batch. I'll start with my 2/3 of a cup of cornmeal, and I add to that a 1/4 cup of cornstarch. This helps absorb the liquids in addition to the cornmeal. The cornmeal plumps up really nicely. By adding only cornmeal and cornstarch, this recipe is actually gluten-free, which is fantastic, especially if you're thinking about doing some entertaining around holiday time. You know, it may be fall, but the holiday season is around the corner. Now I'll add my 2 tablespoons of sugar, my 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. But I also add a teaspoon of chili powder. If you don't want to use chili powder, you can use paprika or even smoked paprika if you want. It adds a nice little color and depth of flavor. I'll give this a little whisk just to combine everything. And now it's time for the liquids. Now this is a fun ingredient that I add. In place of using something like buttermilk, I always have kefir in my fridge, which is a fermented yogurt drink. It's got a real tartness to it, it's low in fat, and what it does is it activates the baking powder and gives a nice fluffy texture to these cornbread madeleines. I'll measure 2/3 of a cup, add that to my bowl, and crack in 2 eggs. Oh, can't forget that butter. And I'll whisk everything together as I'm pouring the butter in. Now I can add this all at once to my dry ingredients and give it a good whisk. You will find that the batter is quite fluid. If you wanted to, you could bake this batter in the Madeleine tins just like this, but I want to add a little texture. So I'm adding a cup of corn kernels. This time of year, you can use frozen corn kernels. Just make sure they're thawed before you add them to the batter. And for a little kick of heat, I've diced up a fresh jalapeno pepper. I took the seeds out, so it's hopefully not too spicy. We'll find out. And you stir this in, and now we're ready to portion. I have to go get those Madeleine pans from the fridge. If you're using a mini muffin tin instead of the Madeleine pans, do the same trick by chilling the pan, buttering it, keep it chilled until it's time to portion the batter. You can use 2 spoons, but I'm using a scoop. And you do want to fill these Madeleine shells. And here's some great news. These Madeleines only take 10 to 12 minutes to bake. Now it does take a hot oven, 400 degrees, and you can tell when they're done because they'll turn a nice golden brown around the edges. Here are the Madeleines out of the oven, and don't they look glorious? That golden brown color, and they're gonna have such a great crisp edge, but a soft cakey center to them. Now when I'm making sweet Madeleines, I always tip them out of the pan right away. But when it comes to these savory cornbread Madeleines, I like to let them cool in the tin about 15 minutes. It makes them easier to take out. Oh, they're so pretty. Now, when I'm making a sweet Madeleine, my quest is always to get that perfect bump, la bosse that sticks on top of it. With a cornbread recipe, that's not guaranteed. What counts for me is that I've got this beautiful little cake. It's a savory bake, and it's packed with flavor and is tender, and is a little something different, which I like around this time of year. Oh, don't you just love that delicate shell shape? It's nice to have a little something different around this time of year, but yet you have that familiar corn and jalapeno cornbread flavor, which is why I love to serve it with chili, with soup, or alongside a cheese or charcuterie plate. You know, entertaining season is around the corner after all. Just like sweet madeleines, these savory madeleines are best enjoyed the day they're baked, warm if you can. But the good news is you can make them ahead. Make and bake your madeleines, then once they've cooled, wrap them well and they can be frozen for up to 3 months. Then you just have to reheat them in a 325 oven for a few minutes. Those edges will crisp up, but they won't overcook in the center. This little savory bake has everything you want. A beautiful shape, gorgeous color, great texture, and of course, a fantastic taste. I know this recipe is going to become a fall favorite of yours. It already is one of mine. Enjoy. Now I can't decide. Am I in the mood for blue cheese with this or a bowl of chili?